Hi everybody, welcome back to Sociology. Today we're going to be doing a very interesting topic called small group controlled devices. All right, now small group controlled devices aren't necessarily something that you'd find in a sociological textbook, but I find them fascinating and interesting, and they've been used on you and they've probably worked. Now, if you've ever heard the term brainwashing or in a movie, something like that, just so you know, there's no such thing exactly. Okay, I think psychology is pretty strict about the fact that you can't brainwash, you can't make somebody do something. Certainly not with hypnotists or giving you all your money or something along those lines. But when it comes to being in a group, you will find by the end of this lesson that there has been a lot of things that you can get people to do that may be very much counter to their own self-interests. So if there's not brainwashing, then there's something really close. And in sociology, we're going to take a look at those. Now, the times where this would come up, there's three main instances, I guess you could say, where you're going to see these social control devices possibly in your own life. One is in the military. Okay, if you ever join the military, go through boot camp, or have anybody that's gone through boot camp, a lot of these small group control devices are going to sound very, very familiar. Another interesting way that we're going to look at as well is something called multi-level marketing, or so what you say direct to sales. This would be examples where, and we'll look at this in a minute, a little bit later, where they have a pyramid-like structure to their business model, okay? And they're going to be using small group control devices, mainly in the area of sales and such. And then if you ever join a cult, okay, or a small religious organization, they're often going to very much employ a lot of these as well. Having said that, these control devices aren't necessarily by themselves evil, okay, or bad or wrong. It's one of those tools. It depends how it's used. All right. So, for instance, the military might be using these. Well, they would hopefully to turn you into a better soldier or sailor or airman. Okay, that's their design. It's not to make you a worse person. It's to make you a better member of the armed forces. Okay, so they want predictable behavior, and I'll probably mention that a bunch more times. From a sales point, they may, depending on their how, their morals, they may want to help you become involved in a business, or they just might want your money. In a religious setting, they might be wanting to save your soul, so they're really employing these techniques and devices. Or they just want your money. I don't know. These are all just tools, depending on how they're used. Then the morals come into play. I'm teaching you them so that you can see them in your own life. All right, so that you can identify them, and when people are employing them on you, you can be aware of what's going on, as opposed to just flying in the dark and at the mercy of these social control devices. Because very interestingly, these devices and techniques work well. All right, they're tried and tested over thousands of years to kind of compel people to do what the leader of the group says. All right. Okay, so before we get to the actual techniques, we need to know how you basically employ them on a person. And the first thing we need to do is we need to create something called mental malleability. So this is step one. Create mental malleability. You can't just take a strong, healthy person and make them tell them to give you all your money or something, or hey, come invest a whole lot of your time and energy in this thing, or charge up a hill with this gun. All right, someone would self-represent say, no, I'm not doing that. Of course not. All right, but when your brain becomes malleable, okay, now we can start to make changes. So malleable, mental means the mind. Malleable means bendable, shapeable. So you think of an iron rod. If it's cold and not it's regular iron, you can't bend it. If you heat it up and it becomes red, you can now twist it and shape it into the direction and shape that you'd like. It's now malleable. We're going to be doing the same thing with human minds. Now, how do you do that? Step 2 is you use something called cognitive dissonance. Dissonance is the opposite of harmony. All right, so this is when harmony is when everything flows and is in sync. Dissonance is when things are not in sync. So, and cognitive means mind, brain as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to make things not harmonious in the brain. We like things as humans to make sense, to fit into patterns. We're always looking for patterns. And when things don't fit into patterns, our head starts to hurt. We're going to call that head starting to hurt thing mental malleability. So as soon as your brain starts to get a little mushy and numb and not quite with it or something, we may now say that it's malleable. Okay, which leads us to step 3, which is to impart new values. All right, so once we get the brain kind of a little mushy and not quite with it, here's where we're going to slip in new ideas and values. Okay, so you can essentially think of it as, rewriting how you feel and what you think is important. Again, you can't do that with somebody who's well rested and feeling great about themselves. It's a lot better to get their brain in such a space that they'll be accepting and absorb this new information. All right. And a big part of this when it comes to small groups is not them. We will be doing the thinking for you. Okay, the group will be doing the thinking for you. And that's a theme that is going to come up again and again and again. Okay, so that's how we go about, those are the 3 steps. Now, to create the cognitive dissonance and to essentially, get the new values imparted, we've got a whole bunch of techniques, and this is definitely going to run into 2 videos. But one of the easiest ones, I guess we could start out with, is a thing called jargon. Jargon is specialized language for a group. So certain groups have language that's specific to them. A great way to experience jargon and how it creates cognitive dissonance, there's lots of great ways. But one for me is Google something in a field you're not familiar with, like some advanced calculus. Okay, just start reading how they explain what a calculus is, and eventually you're going to run into words that you don't know. Okay, then you're going to run into more words that you don't know, and by the end of the sentence your head hurts. Okay, now we're experiencing how jargon can make the brain not work. Military is filled with jargon. Okay, they have a new word for almost every single thing that exists, even though it's not a bed, it's a bunk. Okay, it's not cafeteria, it's a mess. So they have different words for everything, and when you first experience these words, you don't understand what they're saying. I don't get it, and then whoever is instructing you says you don't have to get it, just do it. This type of thing. Acronyms in the military, they're famous for acronyms. They can have an entire conversation just with MIAs, and that's the only one I got. But you get the gist, okay? So it's very confusing to an outsider, and that outsider does not understand the language. Their head's going to start to hurt. A great example you could say, if you hear a language that you don't know, that can also create cognitive dissonance, because we like languages to make sense. When languages don't make sense, our head starts to hurt. So anyone that's ever been in line or had to listen to somebody else speak in a language they didn't know found it frustrating. And some people, to different degrees, will I can't listen to this anymore. Okay, because what they're experiencing is they want their brain to know what's going on. It should be in harmony because they know it's a language. They know language makes sense, and this does not make sense. So they're going to start to get anxious, okay, and well, with dissonance, it's not fun. So they're going to, well, they can react however they want. Great example could be, well, Catholic Mass until I believe 1950s was in Latin, and no one spoke Latin. All right, so it would be like basically an hour of a language you were unfamiliar with. Okay, that can be frustrating and like, huh, what's going on? Okay, so that's one great way is jargon. And if you are a new student and you're going into classes that you're not familiar with and the instructor's using language you don't know, you're going to start to feel a little numb in the brain because things aren't making sense. We can call that little numb in the brain mental malleability. All right, so just jargon's kind of a great start, easy to do. Another one is going to be sleep deprivation. Okay, when you arrive at boot camp, depending on the branch, you may not sleep, well, get a full night's sleep for several weeks. Okay, certainly they'll do it at 4 in the morning or when you arrive extremely early, and they will just keep you on the go until they feel that you've achieved a level of acceptance that they're comfortable with. Otherwise, no sleep for you. Okay, it is a non-sleep environment because they don't want you thinking, and that's one of these goals. When you're sleep deprivation, if you've ever gone a long enough time period, your brain starts to get very, very hazy, and that hazy is mental malleability. It's not strong, and it's not in a good position. Again, I want to really help me out. Usually someone tell me this. I want to say again that you guys are probably screaming at home. I want to say again that the military is not doing this because they don't like you. Okay, they're doing it to turn you into a better soldier, sailor, sailorman, airman, marine. Okay, it's all in an effort to have predictable behavior. A military that does not do these things is going to be a disjointed, inefficient military. You need predictable behavior from all participants. Okay, and that's why you're going to be doing these things. It's not because they dislike you. I reiterate. I'll think of it. Okay, next one. Next one is kind of interesting. It's called fire. Well, you know what fire is. But fire has this habit, you know, just thinking of staring into a fire, you can almost feel your brain turning into like a different level. All right. So great examples are bonfires for schools where they get everyone pumped up staring into a bonfire. Hitler, who also come up again, used to speak between two pillars of fire. And if a guy's speaking between two pillars of fire, you're going to have a tendency to listen. There's this magical thing that they do sometimes at certain services where everyone lights a candle and they turn out the lights and everyone holds the candle, maybe raises it or waves it or something, and you all sing together, which we'll get to in a second. But it feels like a very magical experience, like something magical is happening right here. Okay, and fire has that effect. There's many religious festivals around the world that incorporate fire, the Japanese lanterns, or you know, the Ganges in Hinduism. They have a whole bunch of little candles going down the river. I'm sure it sounds magical, and if you were to experience these things, it would feel like magic. Okay, it would be outside of you. It would feel like a little more powerful than you're aware. All right, we could say at that point that you've been started to go down that road towards mental malleability. All right. Loss of individuality. This one is extremely important, again, because the group is going to be superseding the individual. The individual is not going to be making decisions when we're doing small group controls. The group, or who's ever leading the group, is going to be the one. So one of the first things they're going to do if you ever get to boot camp is you kind of lose anything identifying you as you. All right, and your values are gone. All right, we will be giving you your values. We will be telling you your name. All right, and so on and so forth. So the old you we're going to be forgetting about, and we'll be entering into a new you. All right, and this is a very powerful, interesting technique. We will be getting to more techniques. I hope you enjoyed this small group control at the next video. Thanks.